It's time to enhance the relationship between expertise and impact, between knowledge and application. Welcome to a journey of discovery and empowerment. Welcome to All Physicians Lead, the Forbes Books podcast that highlights the critical leadership role that all practicing physicians take on every day. Here's Dr. Leon Morse.
I'm back with my colleague, mentor, and former Army Surgeon General Ron Blanck. We've been exploring his impressive 32 years of military service and his impactful work since retiring. Before we get into your medical experiences in combat zones, Dr. Blanck, could you share a few challenges you faced during your academic career and how you responded to them?
So I was not as well prepared for some of the politics of academia as I might have been. I'm a decent politician. We all do that because you do in any workplace. But our relationship with particularly the public hospital was fraught with hazard, I shall say. And I spent a lot of time going over and sitting down face to face. That's a much better way of communicating than either through emails, which I despise, or even a video conference. Face to face is better. So we worked through a lot of problems, but it was very, very difficult, and we made great progress, I think. And so that was one area. The other one, C. Everett Koop, Chick Koop, who you know used to be the public health surgeon general with the beard. So he's an old friend. So he called me and said, Ron, what didn't they tell you about? I said, they didn't tell me that I had to do fundraising. I knew that I'd have to go to the Texas legislature and, present my case to get funded. And there was a formula for it. I was used to doing that. I would go before Congress when I was in the Army. But they wanted me to go out and ask people for money. It's not something that those of us from our background do naturally. And
very true. Very uncomfortable.
Oh, God, I hated it.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I did it, and I can converse and schmooze and do all of that kind of stuff, but it was it all felt so self-serving to me. But it was for a good cause. We were raising money for the the Health Science Center and building our endowment and so forth. But that was no fun. The other one is when I left the Health Science Center, I joined Ed Martin who had been the acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs and was Chick Koop's Chief of Staff, actually. And so it was Martin and Associates. It became Martin Blanck and Associates. So I did some consulting. I don't like to do consulting, and I'll tell you why. I have no problem in looking at whatever it is, a project, a service, a product, and say, here's what I think you ought to do. Here's where I think you ought to go. They said, well, could you introduce me to somebody? Very uncomfortable to be a door knocker. And I saw that when I was Surgeon General. People came in who I knew on active duty, and they would bring their client with them. And I said, never want to do that. That's just not in my my DNA. So that's a little bit of an issue, but most of the consulting that I was able to do, and I think that most in my group have to do with advising a client where to go, who to talk to, and helping them, but not in the sense of we want you to do the introduction kind of thing. I'm not sure I'm real clear on that. But
no, it makes a lot of sense, and in the words of the great Western philosopher Clint Eastwood, man's got to know his limitations, right? So I'm with you on the fundraising thing. That's awkward. I almost, when Girl Scout cookies come by, rather than having our kids go out and canvass the neighborhood and knock on doors, I just buy the entire carton of Girl Scout cookies myself. Just write a check. It's a lot easier than trying to ask other people for money. So I definitely feel that pain. How about the military? How about some of the big surprises, challenges you faced in all of your leadership roles, but very, very high levels? What do you remember about that?
most of the experiences, virtually all of the experiences I had in the military were positive. I mean, there were some I didn't like very much. In Vietnam, I wasn't sure if being shot at or testifying in front of a hostile congressional committee was worse. I think I'd prefer the former. Although, actually, I never minded showing up in front of Congress because my philosophy was I knew more than they did about what it was they were going to quiz me on. So I didn't feel uncomfortable, and I was perfectly happy if I didn't know the answer to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you on that, rather than trying to come up with something that just gets you into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we learn as clinicians, right? You don't make up a lab result if you don't know the answer. You have to go look it up or people's lives are at stake.
So the real challenges I faced was at Walter Reed residency. I did tropical diseases in Malaysia, came back and was on staff, and then went over to the uniformed services. All went, with its issues and problems and so forth, but good heavens. As soon as I was at USU, Congress tried to close it. And so that was a particular challenging time where we had our first class started. And I don't know how many know, I actually did a history on this once. I had worked with the dean of students at Georgetown, and we had a deal that if it actually closed, he'd take all the students.
Wow.
So we had plan B while we were, still on plan A and fighting for its existence. And we got all the teaching chiefs involved. A lot of members of Congress were patients at Walter Reed or National Naval Medical Center. And so we had an audience that we could go to, and ultimately the university remained open, as you know. And that was that was a real challenge. The other one that comes to mind, and there are many in between, but I'll tell a couple of stories. One is the time in Frankfurt that everyone was mad at the 3 Corps commander because he hired a bunch of nurses and got some equipment to do cholesterol testing at all of his units, brigades and below. I think he put them in every battalion. And so 7th Medical Command went crazy, said he can't do that. We already did it. Well, that's our job. So I said, are you kidding me? This is great. They're doing our work and paying for it. So I had them all come in, and I went over to Corps headquarters and said, hi, Ron Blanck, chief, commander of the hospital. And I said, look, I really appreciate what you're doing. I know what you're trying to do. Wonderful, great information. Let us help you. And if you have any question, comment, please call me directly, call any of my people. I've already told them they better respond positively. So, we're here to help. Now, I got to tell you that you may get funny responses every once in a while, because most of us got into this because we really like sick people. You're trying to keep people well. So sometimes that's not going to really resonate. Well, they thought that was pretty funny. And so we moved on from there. But, that's the approach you take. Work with people, for heaven's sakes. And then the other one that I'm thinking of was the anthrax program. So I stood on stage with SecDef Cohen and described the threat of anthrax and said, we have a vaccine, it's approved, and so we're going to give it to everybody in the military. So there was a lot of concern about that. There was an anthrax no military support group formed of military and family members and whoever else was against the vaccine program. And that took a lot of time and effort, education of the line leadership about what we were trying to do was save lives, for pity's sake, should we ever be attacked by anthrax. And of course, then the one congressional testimony, if I think about it long enough, I'll tell you who the congressman was, but said, General Blanck, I am appalled that you are giving this vaccine to people with only animal testing without doing, somebody wrote it for him, double-blind placebo testing on people. And I said, well, Mr. Congressman, I appreciate your concern. I said, but for me, I think it would be unethical to purposely expose unvaccinated people to anthrax. It's not a naturally occurring disease in people, most places. And he said, oh, and AIDS whispering in ear. And so we moved off of that question. But it was
fair point, Doctor. Thank you for your testimony, and we'll move on to the next.
Exactly.
It's cute. It's like doing the randomized trial of exiting an aircraft with and without a parachute to see if parachutes are effective.
Exactly right. Yep.
We'll take volunteers starting on Monday for that one.
No, that's exactly right. Some of the other, as you're talking, I'm thinking about some of the great experiences. So when I was a staff at Walter Reed, before I went over to, even continuing, I went over to USU, I did a lot of the VIP work. I would see, for example, I took care of Eddie Hebert, congressman from Louisiana, who did the
his name well.
Yeah, establishing Uniformed Services University. And so 2 New Years in a row, we were having a party at our house. I wasn't on call. And first one, William O. Douglas had a stroke. He's in, I think, Puerto Rico or someplace. President Ford sent a plane for him. He'll be at Walter Reed in 4 hours. You need to be there to see him. I said, well, better stop drinking. And so went in and then took care of him for quite a long time. Next year, same party, Mamie Eisenhower was coming down from Gettysburg. She's in kidney failure. I said, well, that's not good. And so she's gone, so I think we can talk about this. It's not confidential anymore. So she came in, and we had everything in pink bedside stand, pink telephone, pink bed cover, because she liked pink. So I said, Mrs. Eisenhower, tell me what's going on. Well, she said, it's the damn doctors in Gettysburg. I had pain in my shoulder. They gave me the ointment, and look, it caused this rash. So I looked at it, and I said to myself, and then eventually her, you have shingles. I said, have you been drinking anything? And she said, nope, haven't had a thing to drink for 2 days. Because of the pain. I said, bet we can fix you with, we're just going to top up the tank. And sure enough, and she had the numbers that you would know, Leon, to support the diagnosis of volume depletion.
A good clinician, not worrying about over-diagnosing. Good for you. Great story. I've mentioned before the admiration that people you served with had. You've always made it look so easy, and we know that it can't be that easy. I have been told once that good leaders are like ducks. Above the surface of the water, they're just looking around, looking very calm, and then underneath the surface of the water, their little web feet are just paddling like crazy. But you don't see that. Right. What's the secret? What did you do? How did you carry yourself throughout all these years and all these challenges to be able to reflect that calmness and confidence as a leader, knowing there had to be stuff going on in the background that you were just tearing your hair out about?
Part of it is a conscious effort to be calm, remain calm, project confidence. Because people are looking at you, and if you start looking like, oops, the ship's sinking, they're going to start abandoning it. So it is conscious. Part of it is you are confident in relying on your team, and it's to a certain extent the decisions you make, but it's really, you're pretty sure that the people you trust are doing what they're supposed to deal with whatever issue it is. And if whatever they're doing isn't working, they're going to come tell you, oh, there's a key leadership kind of thing we didn't talk about yet. Never, ever, ever shoot the messenger, because if you do, you won't get the message. And you want the message. And I used to tell people, I love when you tell me how well things are going. I value when you tell me what's not going well, because then we can do something to fix it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Right.
Yeah. And so I was always confident that for anthrax, we had a anthrax group that dealt with the anthrax know, that was doing the education, that I would meet with the vices and the chiefs of all the services, but they would meet with people who really matter, who are their staffs, and bring them up to speed on what's going on, what this is all about, and if we need to do something more, let us know, or here's what we propose. So it goes back to, again, you're not in it by yourself. You're the maybe the figurehead of the team, of the front person.
Yeah, I reflect frequently on the Apollo 11 movie that was so well portrayed, and as the ship is blowing apart and the imminent death is probably the most likely option for everyone on the crew, you just get the very calm voice in the microphone saying, "Houston, we have a problem."
Yep.
On the surface, the duck is just looking around like there's nothing going on.
Yeah, it's a something that some people need to work on it more than others, but I think all good leaders have in common, and that is to project that confidence and calmness.
In the more difficult situations, you work through and realize that, hey, it's going to happen. And that, I've been convinced that doing that at the bedside and seeing things that initially look like they might be disastrous and helping patients and families through them also gives you a longer term view that we're going to make it through most of these things intact, and creates that ability to have the confidence that somehow we'll get there. That's great.
Exactly. And you always have to be willing to accept that it may not be the perfect outcome that you want, but it'll be an outcome that you can deal with, make something of, and then you look back, and of course we all rationalize, but looking back, you say, in some ways, this was the best outcome that we could have hoped for, because now it allows us to, do something different.
So the Wayback Machine now, how did your experiences in Vietnam shape your career as a physician? What did you learn there that said, this is what I really want to do?
So in Vietnam, I was with a battalion, but I didn't see a lot of trauma, because if we had a firefight or something, I may be able to do basic first aid, not much more than that, and then
right there up front
would swoop in. So my real role, as it is for military medicine, that so many people don't even line don't get. They think, well, it's all trauma surgery. No, it's not. First and foremost, we're there as preventive medicine officers to keep people healthy so they can fight.
Right. It's preserving the fighting strength, right?
Exactly. It took me a while to figure out what that meant. Yeah, but exactly. Preserve the fighting strength. And so with minor illnesses, get them back to where they can contribute, where they can fight. And so that's what I really focused on. Clean water. Good God, we got a PA&E brought us a water trailer, and the water was bad. So my whole firing battery was inoperable. And so I cleared out the mess hall, put cots in there, plugged in IVs. They'd rip them out to run to the John. We'd put them back in when they came back. And so we got everybody through that without having to evacuate anybody. Just, all you do is let it go through and keep fluids going. So that kind of thing. And then I realized part of my responsibility is to my medics. So there's an education thing. So we used to have, after sick call, morning classes. Here's how you treat this. Here's why we do that. Let's look at malaria prophylaxis, talk about immunizations. And I spent a lot of time going around to my distant firing batteries to make sure that everything was going well, up to snuff. So that sent that pattern, and I just so respected the people that I was serving with, officers and enlisted, that they were good people. there's a book, Stolen Valor, by a guy named B.G. Burkett that talks about some of the misperceptions of the Vietnam veteran in those who served in Vietnam as to what they've contributed since, how educated they were when they went in. And there was one fact in there that has always boggled my mind. 2/3 of those who served in Vietnam were volunteers. The draftees really didn't start coming in any numbers until 69, and then in 70, 71, it was mostly draftees, at least enlisted. Before that, it was volunteers. And so we often, I don't think anybody was happy to be there except me, but we wanted to be there. We volunteered to be there. We were trying to do what we thought was the right thing, and it was that kind of service. And that's what I got out of that. I learned about the military and service.
What do you think are some of the accomplishments you've had that you're most proud of? If you could list 2 or 3 things and say, you know what, that is what I want to be remembered by. Not that I'm saying you're going anywhere. I apologize for that. Although I did laugh a little bit with the headline that I saw about you being the oldest surviving Surgeon General, and I just thought, oh my gosh, is that a compliment? I guess it's congratulations, but I really didn't want to hear that or see it in print.
Kind of last man standing.
When you think back, what would you say? Hey, these are the things I want people to know I did. And you probably don't think about that much, right? Because as humble as you are, you don't spend a lot of time thinking back about some of the great things you did.
So a colleague of mine, Barry Walcott, who I think you know.
I do. Yeah.
And another resident, Jim Levy, introduced the problem-oriented medical record to Walter Reed that has become the standard throughout the military, but now all of civilian medicine. So that was kind of cool. I'm very proud of my patients and the patient care that I did. And one of my interns, Dick Moser, radiologist, so he said, do you remember you were attending and the resident had a heart attack? So it was just you and me, but you came in and made rounds with me all the time. And, we just got through it. And we didn't have another resident, there's none to spare, to come and be that person. So it's that kind of thing, trying to be there. In Frankfurt. I had an emergency room staff, both military and civilian. So I gave them off one holiday and said, you never get off, all of you. Go have a party. I think we sponsored a party for them. And so I worked the emergency room because in those days I was competent enough to do it. And at least I vaguely remembered the medications. I'm not sure I would today.
There's too many new ones.
Yeah, God, that's true. So I saw patients up until I was a brigadier, and then it just got too complicated. But when I commanded Walter Reed, if it really got where I was getting tired of paddling, I would put on my white coat and walk the halls. I cannot tell you how many people have since commented, oh, I remember you coming around and asking questions and whatever it is. And this sounds like I'm bragging. I don't mean it that way.
Oh, this is an opportunity for you to brag a little bit. I know these stories. I've seen you, and I've heard many people talk about how great that was to see you out there.
Walking around is so important. And even when, forget who my DC, we decided to contract out housekeeping. I knew the housekeepers. I knew a lot of their names. Some had been there when I was a resident. And so we figured out a way to give everybody a check as they retired. We had a ceremony. People came dressed up, brought families, and taking care of the people like that is that's just it's so rewarding and so forth. Sergeant Major Scott, I have best card command sergeant major in the entire Army, I think, and the most senior too, when he retired. When I was MedCom commander, obviously I couldn't walk around as much, but I still would at headquarters when I went down to Fort Sam. he and I, he'd say, "Come on, sir, let's go." And we'd walk around, we'd see everybody. They hadn't seen a commander in a long time. Now, I sound like I'm criticizing. I don't mean it that way, but doing that little kind of thing makes such a difference to people that they get a sense of being appreciated. So those are the kinds of things. Some of the reorganization I did, I guess I'll take credit for. So I commanded Walter Reed. I also commanded the North Atlantic. I commanded the medical center with all of the other elements, and the hospital being one of them. I separated out the hospital and made it a distinct command because I thought it deserved to have that. And then I was the medical center commander as well as installation, North Atlantic, and whatever other hat I wore. And I think it allowed that commander then to really focus on the patient care activities in the hospital. And I did all the other kind of stuff with the separate staff that I had. In a way, I worried a little bit about, am I doing too many layers, putting in a different layer? But I've seen that now be a model that most of the places are using. And I think it does allow someone to really focus as a commander on the important work going on in the hospital. And the rest of it is administrative support, basically. And other important elements. I don't mean to minimize them. I am proud of that. So we're talking about commanders, aren't we? One of the things I talked about in the interview I gave about the military health system was the Defense Health Agency is indeed an agency, not a command, and therefore the people in charge of the hospitals are now called directors. It drives me crazy. That's not the model that we want or ought to have. When you have a director over the facility and then Army, Navy, Air Force, separate commanders for the individuals who work in that facility, leads to dysfunction and disunity of mission. And for God's sake, organizations should be about trying to achieve efficiencies and unify missions and put personnel where they should be. This whole director concept grates on me, the term, but also the what goes on that has led to it.
Yeah, one of the time-honored principles of military and warfare is unity of command. And like you said, that gets everybody swimming in the same direction. I often point out the model that illustrates that so nicely. If you saw Finding Nemo, the movie at near the very end where all the fish are trapped in the net and they're all swimming in different directions. And Dory's out there telling them all to swim down. And so she orients that entire command, if you will, to swim in the same direction and accomplish the mission. And that's a great visual of leadership and exactly what you're talking about, and getting everybody to do the same thing, to row the boat in the same direction. This has been absolutely amazing. I wanted to thank you for sharing so much of your time with us. Stories, I learned a ton and some new things about your story, which is wonderful. If people want to connect with you or learn more about FAMR or Intel, where would you recommend they go?
Email is rblanck, R-B-L-A-N-C-K, make sure to put the C in, at intel.org, INTEALTH.org.
Dr. Blanck, thank you again. And for all our listeners, really, really appreciate you taking the time to share your story, and you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You're very kind. I love the opportunity to be here and to hear your questions and share some stories. Thanks.
You're welcome. And that wraps up the first episode of All Physicians Lead. If you like the show, please take a moment to subscribe so we can notify you when new episodes release. In addition, please take a moment to leave us a review so others can benefit from the leadership insights of our terrific guests. See you next time as we continue redefining physician leadership.
This has been All Physicians Lead. We can all be better leaders, and our teammates and patients will be the beneficiaries. Go to allphysicianslead.com to unlock your potential, sharpen your impact, and elevate your journey. All Physicians Lead with Dr. Leon Morse is a production of Forbes Books.